Welcome to See You at the Table, where stories meet grace. Here we gather, not just to speak, but to listen. If you want to witness how God brings people together from all around the world through powerful testimonies, tune in and see you at the table. Here's today's host.
All right, here we are again. We got an awesome guy today, Coach Jake Russell, with us. Thanks for being here, man.
Happy to be here. Excited.
Yeah. And so catching you right before football season, before you are totally gone and doing all these things. But again, excited to get somebody around the table, have a little conversation about faith. We always start everybody off just kind of, because Campbellsville's in the middle of nowhere, and I love hearing the stories of how people actually get here and why. And I know you have kind of some history here at Campbellsville anyway. Tell everybody, what's your CU story a little bit? How'd you get here?
Yeah, I'm going to tell kind of a crazy story that one of my favorites. So I think my senior year in high school, I got a letter from Campbellsville University.
Okay.
I couldn't have told you on a map where it was at, even though I went to a high school 1 hour from here.
Okay. Where'd you go to high school?
Anderson County.
Lawrenceburg.
Lawrenceburg.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
So
Okay.
for those that don't know, which is about 99% of the world, it is pretty much between Lexington and Louisville,
Yeah.
right next to Frankfort.
Good spot.
Great small town, great place to grow up. And so senior year, got a letter from Campbellsville, and I was getting recruited by a lot of big schools, had some Division I stuff going.
Oh, wow.
And
Was that all football, or because you played baseball too, right?
yeah, man, baseball, basketball, had offers actually in all three.
No way.
Football was kind of the big love.
Okay.
I did play baseball through college, so that's part of the
Yeah.
story there. But it was a football decision, and got that letter, and was getting letters from some schools like that, NAI, D3, like Center, Kentucky State, D2. And really, at that point, thought I was too good for that, right? Ego, pride, all those things. And, usually I always just threw those letters away. And I remember that day, for some reason, opened the letter and then threw it away. Didn't read it.
Okay. You just opened it and
Opened it, and when I went to throw the envelope away in the trash can, the letter was already in there, and the only thing you could see was the coach's name, and it said Coach Hardy,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
which Jim Hardy,
Hardy, yeah.
obviously was coaching football there at the time, became assistant AD, eventually the athletic director,
Yeah.
just retired. And I guess 4 years later, maybe 5 years later, after spending 3 years at the University of Kentucky in the SEC, resources out the wazoo,
Yeah.
all the great things you can imagine with the competition part of it, which was very fun. Ended up at a place called Campbellsville University,
Yeah.
which was the same place I was too good for and threw in the trash. And I think, maybe God's got a sense of humor, but definitely a plan. And I've thought about that a lot. And even beyond that, Coach Hardy has actually become a great mentor for me.
Yeah.
He was actually the person that invited me on my first mission trip.
That was
out of the
the
country.
Dominican? Is that right?
Yep, Dominican. And so had been on some, domestic things, had done the spring break prison trip that they were doing for a long time, which was, awesome. And was actually back in the summer of 2016 training for, I played a little bit after college, so was back the summer after I graduated training for that to go to California and play. And Coach Hardy pulled by on the mower when he was the assistant AD.
I remember that. Yeah, he
was
mowed
the assistant
everything.
AD. He was like, man, I want that
The zero
job.
turn.
All you got to do is mow, right? I know he did a lot more than that, but he drove past one day because we'd work out in the morning. And, hey, Jake. And then he stopped and pulled back on his zero turn. He said, hey, I got a crazy question. Do you have a passport? And
It's always a fun way to start a conversation.
And what was crazy is, and I just used my passport in the airport yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And so it was 2016 when I got it, and that was this summer of 16.
Yeah.
And I had gotten it because I was had worked out, went to mini camp with a team in the CFL, Canadian football.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had to get it if that was going to be an option. Never have been to Canada for that, right? So again, I think that's part of God's plan and preparation. And I said, yeah, I do have a passport. And he said, do you want to go to the Dominican? I was like, yeah, it is a crazy question. And he said, it's next week. Somebody dropped out of the staff trip they did every other summer. Of course, we've been on some of those now, my wife and I even. And I said, I'll let you know. And he said, I really need to know by probably the end of the day. And I was like, geez, He's like, it's
no
paid.
pressure.
He said, it's paid for. Somebody just dropped out last minute. And really my initial thought was like, man, I got to go to California in 2 weeks to play in this football league. There's no way I can miss a full week of training. I mean, that's how it was wired, to be honest.
Right, yeah.
And I can't remember why, but I went home to Lawrenceburg, Anderson County that day and ate lunch with my mom. I said, they asked me to go on this, and she said, you should go. Like,
Oh, wow.
just when you going to have the opportunity to go out of the country like that?
Yeah.
And went, and, man, life-changing. I've actually been back to that place 9 times.
9 times.
In the Dominican.
Who do you work with down there?
Score International.
Oh, yeah.
Man, my wife and I look at each other every day and think we got to get back. So I was going twice a year for 5 years up to COVID.
Oh, my goodness.
And then, of course, COVID.
COVID messed everything
A
up.
couple years was tough. And then, married 2 kids, became a head coach. It got a lot tougher. But we're going to attempt to do a staff trip in December and try to get some of the staff. And some of the staff's got kids. I'd actually love my kids to get over there. Just love it. Like, man, even considered actually at one point maybe doing that full time.
Really?
And,
wow.
about now been lucky to Belize and a few other places, which has been cool. So, anyway, the how did I end up at CU was at Kentucky 3 years and was playing football and baseball. And, after 3 years and you're not totally getting what you want out of the athletic side of it, had a couple conversations with my coaches and, kind of thought, maybe I want to go to a place where I have a chance to, really play and finish this thing out right. And, part of my testimony, a big part of it is, the idolatry of sports, right?
Yeah.
I always say I'm very lucky that it wasn't, drugs or alcohol or things like that became an idol to me, but it was sports. And now coaching guys, I see that in a lot of our guys, Sports, football is like life. It's all you know. You play from age 5, 6, whatever it is, and it's just your whole life is based around that. And, I did. I woke up thinking about football. I went to sleep thinking about football. It was not hard for me. And this, we have some guys like this, but I even think I was just wired just in a certain way, which I think's your greatest strength, your greatest weakness. I think I still battle that, right? It's not hard for me to go and spend 8, 10, or 12 hours doing football, even as a coach. I love it, right? The recruiting, the coaching, and as a player, it was the training and the preparation, and I actually really liked, different than most players, the preparation for a game. And then the game's just like, well, this already been decided what's going to happen. This is just a result of all that work, right? So I actually missed the training where most guys miss the games, and CU was so amazing for me, and maybe that would be your next question there. I don't want to jump out ahead.
No, you're good, man. I'm just following you.
I got to Campbellsville, and it was a lot different than being at Kentucky, right? You went from flying on private planes to games, and, you go ask for anything, and they'd give it to you.
What was your biggest shock, like coming from UK to Campbellsville?
Yeah,
what was
so
your biggest shock?
Story. I think it was first day of camp or whatever, and went and said, hey, I didn't have a girdle, which in football it's basically a pair of compression shorts, and now they have the pads in them.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, you'd have to belt the pads around.
Wow, yeah.
And so I didn't have a girdle in my locker, and I go to the equipment window to one of the managers, and I'm like, hey, I didn't get a girdle in my locker. And he was like, oh, we don't give those out. Like, we don't have those for players. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. So that was probably the first shock, was like that you're not just going to get unlimited gear, and if you need shoes, you're which, again, we got great stuff here, and we really work hard to give our guys great stuff and make them proud of the gear and everything. But, you're going from a tens, $100 million, business, which is SEC football, to NAI football, which is still great. People are shocked how good the athletics are at this level. But that was probably the first thing. So I'm like, no big deal. Went down to Hibbett's, got a girdle, moved on. Yeah. Wasn't anything. It's the same game. Mm-hmm. It's just, resources are a little different. Yeah. And at that level, Division I, it's crazy. It really is.
It's wild. A few years ago, my wife and I was working at a camp in Oregon, so we got to go to the University of Oregon. There were some people that worked there. So we got to go behind the scenes, kind of where they work out, and got to get on the field and all that stuff. But they actually had a machine that they put their cleats in to, like, supple them up, because they changed. I was like, this is nuts. Like, they had something just for their shoes so that when they changed their cleats so much, they're ready to play,
Yeah, Oregon was actually the first one that the lighting in the locker room matches the lighting outside at all times.
That's insane.
So their eyes don't have to adjust when they walk out.
So much money.
So think about
Yeah.
just the money and the resources and
Yeah.
the detail that can go into that. And so,
Hmm.
got to Campbellsville and loved it. Like, totally different. Your coaches formed relationships with you, which was different because they're not fighting to keep their job every day. They're not being paid millions of dollars. It's not as business-like. Campbellsville University is a business in a sense, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's a scary time for small schools.
Right, yeah.
And so there's definitely that side. But getting poured into in every area, and that's what I love for our guys, every area of the school, some professors did a phenomenal job of incorporating faith into any subject, right? I have a sports management major, so even into that, right? Obviously, Coach Thomas, Coach Cantwell, who was my position coach, great mentor for me, like really the person that I looked at and thought, man, the coaching thing is actually really cool. Like,
oh, that's kind of where that seed got planted, huh?
The way he did it, and he would plant the seed. Like, what are you going to do? You should think about coaching. I don't know about that, but seeing him do it and the way he balanced pushing you in your passion, football, right? But pouring into you as a young man, hopefully preparing to become a man that, eventually become father, husband, employee, all those things. And your faith. He did such a great job within our room. And we had guys from California, Tennessee, Kentucky, all the different places, even just in the quarterback room, and guys that – and this is the coolest thing about college athletics, specifically football, is we got guys that grew up in extremely wealthy households, extremely poor households, guys that came from super small towns, inner city, big city, all these things, and you throw them in there.
All mixed together.
Family, right?
Yeah.
But you really got to work on that and get us a vision. And so Coach Cantwell, man, did really just about as good as anybody I've ever played for or seen doing that. And Coach Thomas did a great job of pushing us to be better men. And so that side of it, I think, is what made me really love being at Campbellsville. We were running the same football plays. Everybody does. Everybody thinks there's secrets. There's really not. Right?
It's all the same basics, yeah.
Work hard and, give great effort and be disciplined, and you'll have a chance. And so it was a great experience for me. And I know you probably kind of ask about how your faith journey and all those things. So I'll just get into that if that's cool.
Dude, man, yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, it's something we like to hear, and you're really kind of weaving that in already. Like, it's really cool to hear your story of, because you hit on sports being an idol, which I think is a pretty common thing in the U.S. especially, and even like small town America. When I think of Campbellsville, the town, it's very much like a baseball town. And as a dad now, I got 3 kids. It's real easy to see how that even seeps in ways that you don't, as far as sports kind of. I want all my kids to be capable and play these things and even really be shepherded in how they're gifted. But, man, it's so sneaky how it's easy to, like, lose that. And so, yeah, it's been cool. That sounds like a part of your story already. But, yeah, what would you pull out if you're going to share a little bit about your faith journey?
Yeah. And on that, just the thought I had was, like, that can be such a powerful platform and think about our program. Yeah. I always tell our coaches, and so I've loved doing mission work around anywhere, the world, going to Florida, doing we went to prison this spring with a group of players and played basketball with some of the guys and shared and all those things through Robbie Spear and Sports Reach, and how powerful, how sports can bring you in.
Oh, yeah.
Then provide the platform to share.
For sure.
One of the greatest things about coaching at Campbellsville is we never have to worry about, can we pray, share scripture, have devotions, do ministry teams. Yeah. We gave every single player on the team a custom Bible last year.
So cool, man.
Not only is it supported, it's encouraged, and people are just, pouring even more into that.
It's empowered, yeah.
So kind of with the faith journey, extremely just blessed, lucky. As I guess I thought everybody probably grew up like that through a young age, and then especially doing what I do now and seeing all the different backgrounds of our guys and hearing their stories and some of our coaches' stories, thinking, geez, why was I so lucky? And grew up in Lawrenceburg, born, raised, probably at times complained about it, but go back now and think, man, this was the best place ever to grow up. Nicest people in the world. People would do anything for you. Kids I was in class with in kindergarten were the people I graduated with, played sports with, all that stuff. And
that's cool.
My both sets of grandparents, all four still living today, and my parents, regular churchgoers. It was from when I can remember. We were going Sunday night, and Wednesday night, right?
Yeah,
So it's
solid,
pretty common for a lot of people in your small town Kentucky, and
For sure.
RAs on Wednesday, church,
Okay,
Sunday
yeah.
school on Sunday. Awanas, I think, started getting big around that time.
Yeah.
So Awanas on Sunday night, and if they said you could play basketball or something the last 30 minutes, I was ready to
You were
go.
there.
And
Yeah.
yeah, but it was great, man. Just grew up in a really good church. When I was 8 years old, it was at an Awana. Somebody came in, talked about being baptized, and I was like, yeah, I've seen some kids do that. My brother had been baptized, and I was like, I'm going to get baptized. Like, it looks cool. So got dunked in the water, got baptized, and, would say at that moment, I don't think it really clicked. Like, I don't think I knew what I was doing at that time. It was just, you're in church, you're regularly seeing people get baptized, you're seeing kids your age get baptized, your older brother's been baptized, and you're like, yeah, okay, that's just what you do. You
Just kind of following the
at some
thing.
point,
Yeah.
somebody comes in and says, if you want to get baptized, come talk to me. Okay, hey, I want to get baptized.
Right, yeah.
And again, just was very lucky to be in church and have a lot of those values and those Christian principles and stored in me and in my family. We praying and reading the Bible. I think my parents just, I don't know how you could have done a better job of really trying to push us to the right things without shoving it down the throat or whatever you want to say. And I don't always like that phrase because I think if you're a Christian, you should be outspoken about it, right? Not
be intentional.
I'm a Christian,
Yeah.
but I don't want to throw that on my players. No, hey, expose the players. Just
Right.
do it in a Christ-like way, and I think God will make the growth. So, regularly went to church growing up through high school. Started going with my mom's parents to their church, and really got a good groove there. And would say that grandfather, my mom's dad, really kind of his prayers were very powerful, and he really was a prayerful person. I remember being in the on deck circle in baseball and looking up and he's praying.
No way, really.
Thinking, Granddad, like, stop praying for me to hit a home run. Like,
Yeah.
But I just saw how he knew there was power in it, and of course we've all seen that in our lives in many different ways as you go through life. And so went to college, and I was involved in FCA and BCM, and at Kentucky we had a team chaplain, and
Nice,
was in anytime they had a meeting, and it was always optional stuff. Went and had some friends that were involved in that stuff, and was going to church. A lot of times they do the student nights on Sunday nights at some of the local churches. So did that, and I think the big thing for me was while I had that, and that was definitely a part of my life, it wasn't the most important part of my life. Sports was the most important part of my life, for sure. I tell our guys a lot that, time is love. So you say, faith, family, football. Okay, well, I'll spend 8 hours today on football. I'll stare at my phone for 3. I'll do something else for 2. And then I'm trying to keep my eyes open as I'm getting on the Bible app at night to read the scripture of the day. It's like, evaluate your life. You're saying God's the most important thing, but you're not investing and showing that through thought, action, speech, all those things. And
when did that change for you? Like,
so and I'll tell one more thing. I get to that is my mom, and if you've ever kind of been for football, but any sport growing up, like you're going to summer camps, right? And you're like, I'm going to Purdue, and I want the coaches to see me. And I remember my mom, and both my parents, but my mom more, was driving me around. We'd stay in a hotel the night before, and there's always that. I actually carried a Bible a lot, but there was that Bible in the Gideon Bible in the drawer right by the beds, right? So sometimes when I didn't have mine, I'd get it out. And this was kind of the mindset was, I guess you may call it the prosperity gospel. I was like, well, I'm going to read this Bible in hopes that
something will happen
this
over here.
Division I scholarship comes along, right? And and even strong Christians in my life, keep being a great young man and keep God first, and He'll reward you, right? Well, when you're 14, 16, even 18, 33, right, it's hard to sometimes separate. It's not that if I do those things, He's going to help us win more games. He's going to reward us in, His
For sure.
eternal rewards, right?
Yeah.
He's going to bring a movement in our program. He's going to show you your calling. He's going to open doors. He's going to give you clear vision, all those things. And so when did it change? Came to Campbellsville, played a spring semester of baseball, went pretty well.
Yeah.
Had a pretty decent season individually. Went as a college baseball player, you typically go and play somewhere around the country in a college league. I went to Northern Virginia, played in that league, and the first time I really remember this is I drove back after the season was over, and I think fall football camp started maybe like, I don't know what the date was, let's say the 6th, and I drove back from Virginia on the 4th, and it was about an 8-9 hour drive.
Oh, nice.
And I remember on that drive, I rode with one other guy, and I just remember having a lot of time to sit and think, and I remember thinking, you know, I don't want to feel like this anymore, like where no matter how successful I was in sports, no matter, you know, what I achieved or didn't achieve, that it just felt like it was never enough, right? Never filled the cup, right? And then, God, you probably know that feeling.
Right, for sure.
And was home for maybe 24 hours, moved into Southeast Hall. I think 202 was the room number.
Yeah.
And my 3 roommates, 2 were not athletes, and 1 was on the football team, but he wasn't playing that year. I think he was just a manager, so he came late. So I was actually in the room by myself in Southeast, and you do have your own little room. And the night before football camp started, I just remember praying to God, because I had a fear of the day that I couldn't play sports anymore.
Oh, wow.
Because I don't think I knew who I was.
Who you're going to be. Yeah.
Without that, because that was my identity, right? Idolatry. And we read the Bible and we think of Baal and those idols, the golden calf, right?
Yeah.
But anything that you put before God, that's an idol, right? You're right. In America, idolatry of professional athletes and teams is a huge deal, right? And so was in Southeast Hall in that bed that night and just prayed to God, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I remember saying just, you take control. And I always joke with people that the room shook and I levitated. No, nothing happened, right?
Oh, man.
But, you know, I can't even say the next morning like I was walking on air or anything. But the time that I remember that something was different was went through fall camp. We played Lindsey Wilson, right, the big rival.
Lindsey.
First game, it was a great game, went down to the wire. I played really well. Team played really well. We lost by like 2 or 3. It was a great game.
Yeah.
My first game here. It was a lot of fun. And I did, you know, I made a couple plays towards the end that maybe could have won the game that I didn't make and we lost. And I don't know why this was so like vivid in my imagination or in my mind that I can see is I remember standing at the 50. When you finish a football game, your 2 teams kind of gather on the 50 and walk across the field and shake hands, right?
Okay.
Just, you know, good game, good game. Yep. And I remember standing on the 50 and seeing the clock go down towards 0. And obviously we were we were going to lose, so it's just the time was just running down.
Right, yeah.
And for the first time in that situation, feeling peace.
Oh, wow. Like it didn't depend on the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like that, I wasn't, you know, judging my life and those things. I pray this before every game with our staff. Don't let us judge ourselves off numbers on a scoreboard or in a stat book or anything like that.
Yeah.
And man, just things like what I just talked about, the doors opening. The next spring went on my first kind of like big mission trip, at least since I had been out of high school, to the prisons in Florida, and saw 96 people in a week either give their life or rededicate their lives to Christ. And it's like, what? Like,
what is going on?
This is crazy. And, you know, that next summer going to the Dominican and just catching the bug. And, you know, God's just continued to provide me opportunities to serve and go around the world at times, even around the country. It doesn't be here in Campbellsville, right? And then, you know, with the coaching thing, I just think it's the best thing ever because you don't have to go anywhere to do a mission trip. They come here.
You're right there, man.
And, you know, especially at Campbellsville, you can do so many awesome things. And we've seen God work in our program, and I work alongside some amazing, you know, godly men on a daily basis. And just like you and a lot of other people that work here, there's a lot of people supporting our guys outside of our program. And it's just been awesome. And, man, I wish I would have done that a lot faster. I think anybody that comes to know God wishes they'd have done it a lot
know.
sooner. But I will say that a lot of things I learned, especially probably through the college years when I was serving, athletics as my God, I use today in my coaching and being a husband and a father that I think God was just teaching me and prepping me for, and all those things. And I'll finish with this. I always tell people that I didn't make athletics, I always say athletics because I did play multiple sports, but I didn't make football or baseball any less important in my life. I actually think I worked harder.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, when you come to know God, you just seem to have a little bit more, energy and joy in what you're doing. But I just made God that much more important, and that was a big thing for me, and it's still a battle every day. I love football. It's kind of the common theme of everybody in our program. Yeah. It is not hard to go in there and prep for a game and recruit and do all the things that our job requires, because I think it's our calling. And when you do that, it's, never worked a day in my life, very cliche, but that's how it feels.
That's so cool.
And I think you just have to continue to make sure that that's never, replacing that energy and time and love that you need to give God. And every time I've done that in my life, I think that God has really, kind of maximized the ministry that He's calling us into. So that's kind of the short version there.
Man, there's so many questions I want to ask, but we'd
go.
be here forever. But, the word surrender keeps popping in my brain about your story of, that. And you're so right on that one. You said you actually loved. It's not like you diminished your ability in football by surrendering to the Lord. I think it's really funny. That's been one of my kids' questions about following Christ. And, they're like 6, 8, 10, there's this fear that you're going to lose, something, and it's hard for us to really trust that life's going to become more abundant in Christ in the sense of where it really matters. I remember even as a high schooler, for me, 16 was that time that I really just kind of surrendered in a different way than I ever had before, and my grades actually got better. Not where like you could see these things that were a result of, man, I actually surrendered to God, and things were just in the right perspective. It doesn't mean I was less of anything, but more. That word just kept popping in my brain as you were talking. And you guys are, like, I say this all the time, there's few positions on campus that are as full of opportunity to make a difference. And coaches, I feel like, are like at the top. I would say the top 3 positions on a college campus or anywhere, really. That's why I love, like, getting to coach even like Little League soccer and stuff like that. Just the open door, the opportunity that is to really invest in somebody's life in a way that's going to make a difference. Really fun. And you guys are really seeing that. I was going to see if you actually would share, maybe you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but I think God has really been moving on the football team and doing some crazy cool stuff. If you were going to share kind of a quick snapshot or a story about how you've seen, man, this is not just a game I'm managing, but this is a movement of God that I get to be a part of. What's something that you've really seen happen here at Campbellsville so far?
Well, we have a staff of 11, and the head coach is the one that gets to be on the podcast, right? And that people come up to and say, you are doing such an amazing job. And I always say, I'm just telling everybody what time to be there, and where to be, and, with a schedule. But we have 10 other guys on the staff that are daily pouring into the players.
Yeah.
Even now,
I see that.
There's great things about this, and then some of it's kind of scary with technology, but we're Zooming twice a week with all our position guys. We're probably daily texting them. Some of the coaches are they have a different player every single day, send a verse and say why they sent it, and we do a staff devotion every day. So we're actually constantly trying to strengthen the people within our program and their faith. We have some players in our program that are extremely strong Christians, and we have players that have zero relationship with Christ, right?
Yeah.
And that's a reality of any group of 170 people you put together. That's probably the case. I don't know. Even on like a mission trip, right?
Right, yeah.
And so that's what's really cool, is because then you really want to see the players encourage each other. And we've seen players, a group of 3 guys that are going to church together, all of a sudden turns into a group of 12 guys. And it's going. So we do ministry teams once a week. Each team's based around a book of the Bible, and there's been so much good out of that. They're reading scripture, they're praying. Some guys sit and don't say a word, but something you got to realize as a person, is the word is alive and active.
Oh, yeah.
All you got to do is be willing to open and share it,
Yeah.
and share your story. First time I told my story, like, man, and then I hear other people's story, and they've been through all this crazy stuff. And
yeah.
I haven't been through anything. I'll never forget that Coach Cantwell asked me to share my testimony at FCA one time. I was like, yeah, sports was my God. I got over that. Now God's my God. Go team.
Yeah.
And 2 people came up. I was like, man, thanks for
huge.
sharing that. Really, I've been going through the same thing. And I'm like, wow, there actually is people that can relate. And so, we just got to be open to doing that. But, yeah, within our program, I mean, our prayer every day is to bring one more person to know God through our program, whether that's somebody in our program or somehow our program is impacting somebody else.
Yeah.
And that, really, I'm really praying for God to do that. Take our guys and our coaches and our players, and even if somebody, I pray this before the games too, if somebody just comes to one of our games and watches it, I want them to see God and say, that was different, right? Your sideline, the way your guys played, acted, all of that was different, right? And, again, I'm always slow to say this because it's not about, but we've had 16 people in a little over 2 years get baptized with the program, 16 players.
Usually over there in the pool.
Usually in the pool, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
One at the lake, which was really cool. And it's been so cool to see. And one thing we work really hard to do is before it happens, and Coach Atwood really leads this, man, does an amazing job. But, again, they all do, is talk to them beforehand and say,
they actually know what's going on,
the decision you're making.
Yeah.
And then we really try to follow up and say, man, that he got baptized our first semester here. I'm starting to see him. And so we call him in. How's it going? Are you in the Bible? These things. And sometimes they're like, yeah, I'm just struggling with something at home. Or, sometimes just with all of us, we get in those lulls where it's like, no, Coach, I haven't been. And so we're trying to strengthen those leaders within our program so they can get contagious. I think it does. And then it almost just becomes habitual and like the culture. Hey, the culture at Campbellsville football program is, you're going to have scripture on your workout gear sometimes. You're going to go to devotion. You're going to go to ministry teams. And we're planting and watering as much as we can, right? We're praying for a fertile heart.
Yeah.
And then we're saying, God, please provide the growth, and we got to trust his timing. And I've coached long enough now that I'm getting invited to players' weddings. That's one way I know I've coached.
That's really cool, yeah.
But 2 is I've had guys text myself or some of our staff and say, man, Coach, this that happened while I was there playing for you guys, it really stuck with me, and I just want to let you know I'm getting baptized or got baptized, or I'm really starting to look in my Bible now. I've been reading the Bible, and it's like, yes, thank you. So we don't know, if what we're planting and watering today is going to be, a text from one of my assistants saying, hey, 5 guys just said they want to get baptized, or if it's going to be 10 years down the road before another one. But as long as there's just one more guy that we can bring to Christ, or I won't say guy, we have some female managers. Again, it could be somebody that our, program, we go to the elementary school and something sticks with a teacher or a student or something. And we do free youth camps, right? And there's always a prayer, and we have our prospect camp here in the summer, and there's 150 players, high school guys there, and always talk about, last thing I always say is, work hard in football and chase that, but make sure you're putting God first. You have a relationship with him. And, for most, just like me, when I was on a knee at 16 years old, right over the head, like, I go to church. I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. And so, man, it's just, it's so fun. It really is. And, it's hard.
Yeah.
Which I think if you're doing it right, probably should
Probably going to be difficult, yeah.
But, man, we love it, and it's been a lot of fun.
That ripple, man, just to kind of give you encouragement to that, and just I think it's hard because we don't get to see the ripple that you're talking about. You might get to hear 10 years down the road, but you may never get to hear the generational impact of how we're being faithful to do what God is asking us to do. And, even locally, like you were mentioning, your guys show up to the schools, like my kids know, oh, those are the football guys, and that stands out to them, or to the in our church, there's a group of guys from the football team that come to our church. And I remember this was last year, my wife was saying, man, it's just really cool to actually see that many young men at church, and not for like that's gonna sound bad, but sometimes guys pursue maybe a lady to a church or whatever, but like they're there as a core group. That's noticeable and impactful even in that. It's just really cool to see how God ripples as we just are following Him. We don't have to create or make something up, that if we'll just trust and follow Him, like He really does do that. And you can see it in your guys and your coaches. I was at the end of the year FCA thing with Atwood, and one of your guys shared, he's like, hey, what you guys did saved my life. Like literally saved who he was. And so it's just really fun to hear, and just encourage anybody listening to be praying for you guys in that as you go. And you guys get some really fun questions too. I'll tell you before because I know I try to keep this short, but it's hard for me. But like one of your guys asked me one time, like, and I get this actually, 75% of our students are student athletes, so everybody's kind of. Yep. But even the practical things of like, man, how do I be aggressive and still be a Christian on the field? Like those are the questions. Like I get that from football players sometimes. They're like, man, how do I be angry per se and not be a jerk, or or like how to even balance. So it's really cool to see how you guys are walking with them, not just in the big picture, but also those real small things that are like, how do I actually live this out? And I feel like when you're playing in the middle of a season, that's where that really gets played out. When you're exhausted, when you're tired, when the challenge really is, hey, am I going to follow God, or am I going to allow sports to become my God? And that's tough too. When you're like going to school for sports are paying for you to be here. Like it's really hard to not lose perspective. And so for me, it's really fun to see you guys as coaches, not just given the cool opportunities of preaching the gospel in big settings, but really walking with them on a day-to-day basis. And it's really making an impact. It's really fun to watch.
Absolutely. You nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that made me think when you're talking about, how do I play this violent collision sport?
I've had that asked a lot. Like, yeah, you should. What would be your advice? That guy that's listening to that out there.
I always tell the players, this is spiritual for sure. You have to play with passion and not emotion.
Oh, okay. Explain that. What does that look like?
Yeah. So, emotion is acting on how you feel in the moment.
Okay.
Someone does something that would make me mad, I get angry.
Yeah.
I lost the game against Lindsey Wilson. I'm distraught. I'm sad.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm acting sad. I'm acting mad. We're doing conditioning. I'm frustrated. Right. So now I'm saying things out of frustration. Mm-hmm. Passion is action out of love. Right.
Okay.
Does not mean that you still won't get emotion. Right, have emotion. I think emotion is very powerful. Right, but passion is an act of love. Right, and so you think about God. I can only imagine that sometimes the decisions we make, if he acted out of anger, right, he would just wipe us all out.
Yeah.
Right, and so he's obviously chosen to show us a lot of passion, grace, mercy, all those things, but he acts out of love. And so tell the guys, if we can end up playing with passion, because I love football, I love my teammates, I love what we're doing, and all my actions are based off that passion I have for the game and for my teammates and for this program and for my mom that's sacrificing so that I can be out here.
Gratitude's rooted in there.
Yeah. Instead of emotion, because if someone comes up and hits you as hard as they can, really in any aspect of life,
it's going to make you mad.
There's going to be an emotion.
Yeah.
And if you act on that emotion in football, you either play the game out of control, make mistakes, you may commit a personal foul, which happens all the time. You see that every single game at any level. And then I think, there's something biblical and spiritual about that when you're a husband and, you've had this long day and things were tough in your job, and then the kids are crying, and then all of a sudden, you open the refrigerator and there's no milk, right? And all you want's a bowl of cereal or whatever it is, right? You could then go say something to your wife, right? Or spank your kids out of anger instead of acting in passion, right? With love. Yep. Right, and so I think if you can do that on a football field where it's like the most extreme of the most extreme, then you're probably going to be in a pretty good spot to do that in a lot of the other areas of your life.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, it's Man, one thing, probably the best thing about football is that emotion and passion. I always say it's one of the only places you can see from a kid, your kid's age to great grandma's age, all have a lot of emotion and energy in the stands, and that's kind of what makes it special, man. There's something about it. All sports are great for sure. They're all so different. Playing baseball and football is about the two most different you can get, man. But that energy that gets in football, and it's I think it's just one of the best games to learn and even to grow in your faith, because football takes a lot of faith, and obviously. And I'm just finished with this. I can talk about football and God all day. Don't put a timetable on the board now, right? You don't have to be out of church at 11:30. Okay, keep going. Now I forgot. Right? Too many hits.
Did you really?
Too many hits in football. I can't remember what I was gonna say. So anyway,
I always have to trust, man. It'd be all right. I hate forgetting stuff, and sometimes like, man, I guess the Lord wants me to remember it. I will. But you're hitting so many. You're literally preaching so many sermons. But I love at the core of that, that self-control is a love for God. That the reason negative emotion really operates is because we are selfish and we're rooted. Ultimately, idolatry of sports is really going to be an idolatry of myself as well. And so, teaching and helping to grow to love others as Christ has loved us, and to put ourselves last, man, is at the core of what you're talking about there. And just awesome. If you were going to give, then just kind of wrap it up. If you're going to leave a table tip for somebody to kind of chew on or marinate on anything that we've hit on, or maybe something else, man, what would you? Because I think you bring so much to the table, from experience in sports to coaching to being on missions and being a dad, and just your journey. Like, your journey is really cool to think about, from this guy who idolized sports to now is leveraging it for the kingdom of God in any way you can. But what would be your table tip for the day?
Yeah, so in the Bible, when they asked Jesus, like, what's the greatest commandment and all those things, it's actually on our player manual.
Yeah. It's
kind of like, here's the 3 keys to be, to be successful, basically. And I think it says, like, honesty and honest communication and something else. And then the last one there says, love thy neighbor as thyself. And so what's crazy is God actually, you hear this phrase a lot. It's like, love others more than you love yourself. To my knowledge, I'm not a biblical scholar by any means, right? I love reading it, but still want to read and learn more. I think it ever says love others more than you love yourself. It just literally says love others as you love yourself, as you would love yourselves. And one thing real quick is, so my sister-in-law got married Saturday. It was awesome, right? And it's very strong Christian family that my wife, or that my in-laws, and now I'm in, and they talk about the scripture in Corinthians, love is patient. Man, every time you hear it, it's just so awesome to hear those things. But anyway, if you think about the word joy, right? And I don't know where I saw this or whatever. I remember I posted it one time many, many years ago on some platform of social media. I hadn't had social media a lot until I became a coach. And just think about the word joy. So J is Jesus, the O is others, and the Y is yourself, right? And so I think while you're called to love others as thyself, I think if you do really put Jesus first in every single thing you do, I think there's a Christ-like way to do everything: to dress, to speak, to do your job, to eat, to take care of your body. I really think there's a Christ-like way to do everything. I think you can read the Bible. If you read it enough, you'll see most of them in there, right? And then others. When I felt closest to God in my life, I was talking to my wife about this. She looked at me one time. We were still, I think, just married, getting young in our marriage, and she said, I want to feel the way I felt in the Dominican.
All the time. Yeah. I get that.
I said, I do too.
Yeah.
I said, here's the thing there. I said, I think we feel closer to God there because we're doing exactly what God calls us to do, which is serve others. Yep. And I said, we're also surrounded by a lot of great Christians.
Yeah.
Where when you get in the workplace or out in society, right? And again, very lucky at Campbellsville where we're surrounded by a lot of strong Christians, but a lot of people here are not Christians. Yeah. Absolutely. And you can go to a church. Everybody's not a Christian in every church.
Yeah.
And so I think when you're serving others, right? Put Jesus first, serve others, put others, right? Sacrifice, and then yourself, right? That's what I would bring to the table, right? Serve. I've never once went to do a mission trip or a service project, and it's so cool to see our guys. They'll do a free youth camp, or one ministry teams. I'll do a service activity. One of them fed the homeless with pizzas. Sometimes I'll do a campus cleanup, and you can see it in them. But I know I've felt this every time I've done a service. Again, whether it's a week long or I've actually done a mission trip for up to 3 weeks at a time, is I feel like I always got more out of it and needed it more than the people. And remember the first time, I'm going to change somebody's life.
Right, yeah.
And then, when you're coming back, flight, bus, whatever it is, you're like, man, that changed my life.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of how I feel coaching.
Yeah.
I'm going to change these young men's lives. And then we're the ones having our lives changed. And I think that's because we are serving. And I think that's what we're called to do. I mean, obviously there's scripture about that. And, came to serve, not to be served, and all that stuff. But that's what I would bring to the table. Yeah. I just don't think you can outserve and outgive and sacrifice, anywhere possibly even minuscule to what God is serving and sacrificing and doing for us. So,
yeah, man, that'll preach.
It's a scary, time, and it's a scary society, and it's a very scary time to have kids, right? I got 3 and 4 year old and thinking, man. But if you read the Bible, it was the same. It just looks different.
Yeah.
It's the same temptations. And like I said, the idolatry that I faced was the same idolatry that they were facing. It was just a different object or whatever it is. So, I just can't outserve the Lord, man.
That's so good. Yeah. And it all starts like your story, it started with a surrender and then it ended with service, and so. Yeah, thanks so much, man. And hopefully, maybe we can get a bunch of the coaches around the table one time. That'd be really fun.
Well, that won't have to be long. Yeah. Some of those guys can talk.
Yeah, it's all right, though.
No, seriously, got some unbelievable testimony on our staff, man.
Yeah, we'll have to get them in here, man.
For sure.
Yeah. But thanks so much. And until next time.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, Jake.
Awesome.
This podcast is brought to you by Campus Ministry at Campbellsville University, where faith, testimony, and dialogue come together. Stay connected, stay inspired, and we'll see you at the table next time.